So much for having me. Thanks, Joan, for setting this up, and Emmett and Marianne. It was fun to get to know your work a little bit by reading you online, but I really appreciate reading with you. Um, well, this has been a pretty strange year, and I keep coming back to this same weird experience I had, and this was a while back, so this was pre-2020. Um, this was a year or two ago. I'm not very good with time, but I was biking home from South Eugene uh, to the Ferry Street area in Eugene, and I was biking over Ferry Street Bridge, and I biked past a woman who was crouching down. And um, as I biked past her, something kind of caught my eye to my right. And as I pedaled down the end of the bridge, I realized I needed to go back. And so I biked back to her, and she had a rope in her hand, and she had a noose tied to the end of the rope. And then the other end of the rope was tied to the bridge girder. And, um, you know, I didn't really know what to say because I'm not very experienced in these kinds of things. And so I just said, are you okay? And she said, it's not my rope. And I was like, okay, but are you okay? She's like, it's not my rope. And I was like, okay. And then she untied one end of the rope from the bridge girder, and then she took the whole rope and pulled it up and then stuffed it in her backpack. And she looked at me again and she was like, it's not my rope, and zipped the backpack closed. And I said, okay, but do you want to talk about anything? And she stood up, and she had a bike hidden a little ways away, and she grabbed that and she got on it. She started to bike, and I started to bike, and we just biked next to each other for a couple minutes, and then pretty soon I realized she wanted to be alone, so I let her bike ahead of me, and she just biked ahead of me. And there's no real resolution to that story. Just that's where some people are. Whoever was the owner of that rope or noose, or her, I don't really know. Um, that's where some people are right now. And during this year, that's been really difficult personally, as I've also struggled through in the normal ways that people have struggled through 2020. I've been rereading James Welch, a native writer from Montana this year, who always astounds me. And one of his books that I love is called The Death of Jim Loney. So my first poem is titled The Death of Jim Loney. The year takes a swift turn into darkness, and there's no way to keep my head up. Dear God, let the light shine on my face. In this great series of disappointments, collected pharmaceutical brand notepads, refrigerator magnets, credit card offers, rotten pumpkins left over from Halloween, scattered decks of junk mail in the kitchen, mismatched silverware, unpaid bills. My cat huddles over a pile of rat entrails on the porch, the only remains of something that lived just an hour before. But now no fur to be found, no head or tail, no teeth or claws. In this symbolic narrative that is my real life, am I the rat or the junk mail? The mismatched silverware or the unpaid bills? Is it so difficult to imagine all of the inadequacies I can deliver? Is it so difficult to understand that I will never be everything you want me to be? I open a bag of flour from the cabinet and discover Mediterranean flower moths, their wings ticking the bag, larvae sticky, the moist, almost sweet smell of decay. So I'm going to read 5 poems here. The second has to do with my brain injury. In 2014, I was hit by an SUV on my bike, and I suffered a significant traumatic brain injury, but I was also lucky in some ways. Um, I have struggled with headaches regularly and a seizure disorder, and I did neurovision therapy and neurological therapy and vocational rehab. Um, and then I realized other things I was struggling with that weren't as obvious as things that I noticed right away, like the seizures I noticed right away, aphasia I noticed right away, where I would switch words. Um, but I noticed that I have a disassociation with time, and I struggle a lot with placing things in time. And I sort of feel that time is thematic loops rather than linear progressions. Um, so time and imagery become looped and connected. It's like the fibers are glued together. So as I was rereading The Death of Jim Maloney, where the narrator is struggling with significant cultural disassociation and depression, I wrote this second poem as well. This is titled The Library at Alexandria, and I just wrote this actually a few nights ago. We are the silence you never wanted, the sitting and the thinking, mouths shut without a television or a podcast playing. Your wrists like something improbable taped to the end of your arms. George Washington's dentures were collected animal and human teeth. I'm staring out the window at the rain coming across slant. 30-degree angled, Duraflame log burning in the fireplace. As a crow turns a dark arc through the wet of the front yard, swimming the rain, cuts the cedar in half, yet it still stands. And I turn to see you no longer there. This is the best answer I can give you. I don't know, and maybe never will. Um, and all of this rereading of James Welch, and also thinking about my mother's Mexican Catholicism, I've been thinking a lot about truth, or maybe a more accurate way to say is I've been wondering about truth. Like, what is truth? How do we find truth? Can we trust what we find if we find something? And who's to say? I guess I've been wondering a lot lately about my own knowledge or lack of knowledge. I've realized that I know a lot less than when I was younger. I've noticed recently the way I think of it is the vast growing pool of my own ignorance. Which brings me to my third poem. And I've been writing in English and Spanish lately. So this poem has a little bit of both. The title is Símbolo de los Apóstoles. Humans see in 40 frames per second, create frame fusion out of the world in front of them, literally, like a movie. Only movies are shot in 24 frames per second, and human sight is not planar. So all of what I just told you is not exactly true. These are the lies of near science, of almost science, what I can research on the internet. Truth. Human sight is a combination of input, beliefs, culture, and emotional state. So religious background can be as important as the retina or cornea, the optic nerve, as sunlight gets naming rights in photosynthesis while chlorophyll does so much work. Watch a person kneel in the dark, close her eyes, whisper to the Virgin, stand and kneel once again. Creo en Dios, Padre Todopoderoso, Creador del cielo y de la tierra. And as I've been thinking about truth, what is truth if not for the natural world, which we're a part of, but also the places we know and love that are separate from us? So I go back to the locations of my childhood, or the locations when I was younger. For example, the Grand Canyon at Toroweeb, where the rock slab juts out and it's 5,000 feet down straight to the Colorado River. And if you have a friend, you can crawl out on this rock slab and they can hold your ankles and you can put your chest over the edge and look straight down to the river that looks like a brown drawing. Or thinking about the spring behind the Awani under Royal Arches in Yosemite Valley on a hot day in August, because the valley's so narrow, it becomes shaded and it's evening at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, even though it's 100 degrees, and you can swim in these pools of water. And then swimming makes me think of Finger Rock Trail in the Santa Catalina Mountains north of Tucson, and the spring water and pool where my siblings and I used to read when I was a kid. And then when it would get hot, we would swim. And this is how we homeschooled for 7 years, or unschooled. Poem number 4. This is titled, it's an allusion to a Pablo Neruda poem, because I love Neruda and all this Chilean writing. But so the title references a line from his sonnet number 17, Entre la sombra y el alma. Where the water goes deep and dark, the bottom no longer visible, green algae-covered stones, I breaststroke off the shelf into the blue murk. Is this what scientists mean when they speak of oblivion? My lungs collapsing into the suck of the black hole. Our conversations orbit the same dwarf star as planets return to their origins and angle. And the song on the radio is the same as the night when we kissed during the sleet storm, and the car steamed, the smell of Taco Bell wrappers and a vanilla air freshener. Upholstery cracked, scraping my skin, stick shift bent, knob fallen off, and second gear blown anyway. Is there enough duct tape to take us back to that moment? And has the Pleiades risen in the east, Orion hunting, extending his claw, hoping to be pulled clear of the wretched horizon? I always try to figure out the loops in my own time and the loops in my own thinking, and how I go back to the same themes over and over. And I think maybe my questioning started as a little kid, but also maybe it was exacerbated when I was a teenager and I got expelled from a school in New York, and later a school in Tennessee, and later a school in Eugene, and got arrested. And so I was thinking maybe my questioning started a long time ago when I was just starting my expulsion process from the 3 high schools. I remember thinking so often in my reform school in Tennessee, with cement floors and metal doors and the bars on the window. And so here, this is going to be my last poem, a shorter poem that I'm going to read today. And it ties maybe again to wondering what I believe, which I'm not really sure about at this point in my life. So it's titled, Or Our Savior. Because that fig is too close to my house, I have to transplant the tree, or the roots will crack our foundation. This is true of trees, but do other roots crack our substructures as well? My 5 months in reform school opened me near my spleen, lacerated my liver, on a table, razor blades, amphetamines, and steroids. Was the metal door locking me in or keeping everyone else out? But this feels more like trunk and branches we're talking about, body versus soul. If my feet are the roots that wend the soil, and I moved 33 times as a child, maybe this weeping is called shoveling. This is titled The Celestial Sphere. Because of her Latinx heritage, my mother went out to the Mexican cemetery west of Tucson like a bruja doll who's been given a driver's license. There, she buried her parents, who are not dead. They're still living in Mountain View, California, near San Jose State University, where my grandfather used to teach engineering. So the graves my mother dug illegally are empty, but we all have to deal with our childhood somehow. What my mother experienced for 17 years has not left her body over the next 53. This is the physiology of cruelty. Para mí, Madre María, nos proteja, besa tus dedos y me bendiga. And please, tell me, is all matter in the universe finite reconstructive or infinite dimensional? And then let's see, to balance Emmett, my new collection is titled Night Comes Early These Days. So I'll end with a dark poem to balance Emmett's hopeful final poem there, which I liked. I'll just do the opposite. This is titled After Toni Morrison Died. Jupiter is caught in Libra this summer, the planet burning heavy above the mouth of Alder Springs Canyon as I lay in my sleeping bag on the grass. I looked, yesterday, at a picture of a horse in a dining room, tried to listen for the sounds of clomping on a wooden floor, but the picture made no sound, so I closed my eyes, waited, until my mind became a cello string vibrating. I shift off my bad side, aching, now that I'm 42 years old, my hair turning gray and receding. I have so many half-healed injuries that it would take 24 hours to tell all the stories, and my favorite writers keep dying on me, some of them old but many too young, preposterously, at ages that will soon be my own. I was told the story of Milton going blind, knowing that he would still write Paradise Lost and Paradise Regained in blank verse. And I wonder about paradise or perdition, either possibility, if I could still believe, have faith in almost anything.